transfer of learning is when a skill that is being learned has an impact on another skill being learned. There are many parallels to schema theory where the motor programs are adapted to meet the needs of different skills. Positive transfer is one skill that enhances the aids the learning of another skill. For example, when in rugby you're running into contact with the ball, there are lots of similarities between running with a rugby football going into a tackle. Be warned not to put positive effect in your mark scheme, as this would not be credited. Negative transfer. This is where one skill hinders the learning of another skill. For example, kicking in rugby or American football, although they involve similar actions to kicking in association football, the sports or skills may have debilitating effects on one another. Rugby players are encouraged to kick the ball high over the crossbar, or football penalty, for example, you're encouraged to kick the ball low, and it's a completely different action. Then we have zero transfer. This is where there's no transferable elements between these two sport skills. I like to use sailing as my examples, often, or windsurfing, as there are very little similarities between these sort of sports and team sports. So the difference between kicking a football, sailing, attacking and sailing, there are no similarities, so no transferable elements. Proactive transfer. This is where learning of a skill has the effect on a skill being learned in the future. So if you were learning a forward roll today, this possibly would help you in the learning of a somersault tomorrow. It would definitely affect that learning of the future skill. On the other hand, we have retroactive transfer. This is where a skill is being learned affects a previously learned skill. For example, the forward roll you're learning today will improve the tumble turn in swimming you learned yesterday. It doesn't have to improve it, it just has to affect it. Then we have bilateral transfer. This is where we move skills from one side of the body to the other side of the body, or from limb to limb. So, for example, in boxing, you may learn a left hook. You can transfer that skill and that movement to the right hand and make it a right hook.
The flip on your feet.
Well, you don't get style points in the NFL, but that ought to be worth 8. I mean, my goodness, that is. I just hope the league doesn't come back and outlaw this. This is outstanding. He wanted to look at the ups on this guy and then to land on, he nails it. That would have been a 10-0 in the Olympics.
Mary Lou Retton would be proud indeed. But we understand the East German judge made it a 9. That's pretty good.
So you've just watched an amazing touchdown in American football. And what I want to talk about is how to optimize transfer of learning. So here's a picture of Jerome Simpson doing his somersault as he scores his touchdown. And what we want to think about is how did the coaches, for example, manage to teach Simpson this movement? One of the obvious explanations is transfer of learning. So we could assume that Simpson's done gymnastics in his past, and he may have transferred the skills learned in gymnastics to the American football field. His coaches could do this by highlighting transferable elements between the two skills of somersaulting off a trampet and somersaulting over a player. Similar to this, the coaches could identify elements that might hinder learning. They need to make sure that the original task is overlearned. So Simpson would have done numerous somersaults, so it is an automatic movement. So he would be in the autonomous phase of learning. They would need to plan progression, so the movements work in stages and get more difficult as time progresses. They would need to make sure that practice is realistic or in a competitive environment. So in the gymnastics room, he would be flipping over dummies if that was their ideas. They would need to make sure that bad habits are eliminated early on in learning. So back in the gymnastics room, the somersault is, when it's been overlearned, it's learnt perfectly, so there were no bad habits. Therefore, it can be transferred easily onto the American football field. Finally, the performer, Simpson in this case, needs to be motivated and confident. They need to want to do the movement and be confident in their ability to transfer the skills onto the American football pitch, which he clearly is. So that's transfer of learning. Often the exam questions are set out that you need to define different types of transfer and then explain how a coach might optimise the transfer of learning. To help understand this even more, check out the Zaption video I've put together. I'll put it in the URL link into the comments in YouTube and on Edmodo. Thank you, and see you later.